PR Aviation. The helicopter attitude indicator fix. Hello one more time. On this chapter you don't have to do this fixed in order to watch this video, only do it for training purposes, or if you are trying to learn how to fly. So let's begin. In PR, go to multiplayer, then create local, select your map, test airfield alternative, press, add map, and deploy. Keep following the video, select the British side, open a squad, and then select your spawn point, which is going to be the second dot from the bottom to the top on the right side. Then look for a Huey or a Bell helicopter and get in. Put a couple of drops of soapy water on your screen protector or acetate sheet, and stick it to the center of the screen. You can use dishwasher soap mix with water. Use the market pen to extend the sidelines on the W-looking attitude indicator. After, remove your clear film just to put it back, or pull it down, but this time you will align with the bottom of the W-looking attitude indicator, and centered, so your attitude indicator is now calibrated for this heli at 0 degrees pitch angle. After start the engine, wait until the engine reach max RPM. That's when the engine tone sound stop pitching up. After, you can start using the accelerator. If you do it before, you will slow the process or tumble the aircraft. Take off by holding down the key W. After, start tapping W to maintain less than 15 meters of the ground. The air filled is 25 meters high, plus 15 equal is less than 40 meters. Level your hover fly by aligning both lines. If you align the default attitude indicator to the artificial horizon, you can see that the aircraft star moving forward. You can notice it more on the GPS. Now, if you align the new attitude indicator to the artificial horizon, you can see that now is leveled. Hover flight landing is easy. Just level the helicopter, then tap S until you touch down. You should hold S down shorter than you release it. If you touch down out of level, the aircraft can tumble. If so, tap S to recover the balance on the ground. When that happens, you should hold down S longer than you release it. If you are new, touch down off level on purpose to practice. Now you can hover fly and balance your heli by aligning the attitude indicator to the artificial horizon. If you are new, practice to roll your aircraft to a side and leveled it. Repeat it to the other side. Same thing, back and forth, but now pitching up and down. Start with a small angle, then increase it until you dominate it. Repeat this as many times you need it, until you feel confident that you learn it. On hover flight, to turn or steer, just use the rudder O steering by pressing the key A or D. After learn how to hover, try to forward hover and at the same time rotate 360 degrees to both sides to develop the skill. Look at the pattern on the attitude indicator. Now let's set the tail angle. Pull up only the pitch until it doesn't go anymore. That's your tail angle. And twice that is your stall angle. The forward flight path, I found it, twice the W attitude indicator size, up. Right there. Now, draw all those markers and add in scale lines. It should look like this. But we still have a problem, because the artificial horizon line is missing on the center, and the scales line are too far to compared with Precision. This will be a solution. Or this. Let's check one more time the sections of the attitude indicator. And add some banking angle lines. Hold down W and use the level flight path marker to fly forward, to maintain your altitude or forward flight, which I already explained. To turn, use the same level flight path. The turn circumference would be proportional to the banking angle, as more banking angle smaller circumference, and vice versa. The absence of the center of the artificial horizon create a blind spot for the banking, but you still can align the banking line to artificial horizon, and even is not that precise still good enough. Use the rudder or steering to go up or down off the artificial horizon when banking. Now let's explain the landing. There's many ways to land. To resume, depends on your approach altitude, speed and the way you touch down. The place also choose the kind of landing, by the space and the geography, finally the time and the circumstance. There is 3 stages for landing: adjust your altitude, adjust your speed, and adjust your level. You can also do all of them at the same time. Then, you can touch down by hover flight land, or by forward flight land. I already explained how to touch down or land when hover flight. When you fly forward, and you're flying low, low means under 15 meters high of the ground, just pitch up to reduce the speed. You can tap S 1 or 2 times to avoid going up, then level to 0 degrees pitch angle and land tapping S. Another way when you fly forward and low, is to release W then level your heli with a small pitch down until you touch down. This kind of landing take place when you have a landing gear with wheels. If you don't, lose your forward speed first, then touch down. You're going to need room forward to do this kind of landing. Another variation is the U-turn and low forward flight with forward landing. This kind of landing is better known as the J-hook landing. On this kind of landing, when you bank to do the U-turn, the level flight path line must be over the artificial horizon to reduce the forward speed, like when you reduce the forward speed on low forward flight with hover landing. Then, before the forward trajectory changes, you must pitch down, to do a forward flight landing with forward landing or touch down, right when star going on the opposite direction. You can bank on the opposite or the same direction before you do the U-turn to adjust the side position you are going to land. Unfortunately, looks ugly since the last adjustment of the PR helicopter simulator engine, before was to loose, now is to stiff. Eventually it will be fixed, but the principles for this maneuver will remain the same. High forward flight with hover landing. Holding down W pitch down to reduce your altitude, but aim way before your landing target to have visual of the landing target all the time, then use the principles of low forward flight with hover landing. You need to descend enough to do a low forward flight with hover landing. This is the fastest way to descend and land, but requires more space. U-turn and high forward flight with hover landing. This is self-explained. Hold down W and pitch down to descend. As soon as you pass the landing target, do the U-turn or J-hook 2 or 3 times higher than low flight and then complete your high forward flight with hover landing. High forward flight with forward landing. Pitch down to reduce your altitude and fly toward your landing target by tapping S, then use the principles of low forward flight with forward land. If you have high obstacles on the trajectory of your landing target, fly towards the last obstacle when approaching down tapping S, so you don't lose visual of the obstacle you have to clear. Then when you get close enough, clear the obstacle by stop tapping S to go forward, then keep tapping S to touch down. Always look at the GPS at maximum zoom on landing to know your position. U-turn in high forward flight with forward landing. Tapping S pitch down. As soon as you pass your landing target, try to level the U-turn slightly under 0 degrees pitch angle, almost like a hover flight turn using a lot the rudder or steer. The way you touch down, hover or forward flight, doesn't really matter, just the U-turn have to be this way because you are tapping S and are very close to stall the helicopter. This kind of landing is kind of risky because you have poor vision down during the turn and you are at the stall limit, but for example if you have anti-air on the castle and the construction, and the mountains are the only cover you have from the AA, then that's the way. The helicopter stall when flying forward without holding down W and you exceed the stall angle line. Or, when you hover flight and you hold down S too long. Or, when you exit the banking turn not holding down W and cannot avoid the tendency to pitch up. If for whatever reason you have to land on a terrain not level, tap S on the ground, but hold S longer than the time you release it. Then, take off by tilting toward the direction of the highest angle of the hill you are standing on, before you hold down W. Learn how to use the cockpit views whenever you have no visual where you're landing, even if you need it for your surrounding, but just for a brief moment because the HUD will disappear. Be aware that if you use the free look the pitch and roll doesn't respond. You can do very tight turns when banking, but for this tutorial what I call a U-turn is a different maneuver. What I call a U-turn is when you are flying forward and you pitch up to reduce your speed and at the same time you start turning until you are heading the opposite direction you were flying. No matter how open or tight is the circumference of the U-turn. Because all the turns should be done at a level flight path except for the U-turn. If you have to land on a very tilted hill, just face toward the top and hover with the nose touching the hill. Made another attitude indicator for the Black Hawk and Yanshuv and try all this again so you have 2 different training. This is all for the Air Transport Tutorial Aviation Sharpter 2.